You are listening to the web's number one choice in spiritual growth and development. This is Heart Over Ego Radio, a network of shows to provide you with healing and guidance to improve the quality of your life. Check us out on Sundays with the Everyday Psychic Show. Mondays is the Alchemy Sisters. Tuesdays, Radical Spirituality. Wednesdays is Know Thyself. Thursdays, Transcending Love. Fridays, Rain Radio. This is Heart Over Ego Radio. Check us out on the web at facebook.com and Blog Talk Radio.
Happy Tuesday. Hello, Mandee. How are you?
Happy Tuesday. I am really good. Crystal and I were chatting for a couple of minutes before the show, and I'm like, I just have like so much energy, and I feel so great. And I'm like, it must be like this retrograde leaving. And I was like kind of maybe a little down or irritable the past couple of days. We did have a nor'easter storm going on and stuff too, but I don't know. I just feel way, way effing better today, and I'm happy.
Awesome. Well, actually, it's funny because like what we were talking about actually pertains to the show. We were talking about ascension. So last week you had brought up ascending at some point in time in the show. I was like, ooh, that's a great episode because it's actually been coming across in my readings lately with people and like actually having people look up or Google symptoms of ascension because there's so much involved in all this spiritual, and I always call it, excuse my French, I know some people are going to be like, what'd she say? Spiritual nonsense is what I call it because there's this rule and this law and this and this and this. And you know, sometimes we just get so bogged down with all of the bullshit that we forget to just live our lives and allow life to be what it is. And so I don't generally talk about, this is so Mandee, this is such a Mandee thing because she can teach us, because she's such a wonderful teacher, without confusing us. And so I have found that I run from confusing teachers. I really run from them because there's a lot of people who teach what they don't really know. And so when spirit comes through and talks about ascending, it's more in the sense of like, you know, look this up so you yourself can see if any of these symptoms kind of match your life at all, and then go from there. And that's kind of how they give me everything anyway. So it's just like, I don't know. They just give me little bird seeds to follow. So Mandee, what is ascension, and what is it that we're going to be talking about today?
Well, for me, you know, we all have our own perceptions and experiences. But for me, ascension is like following and figuring out who you truly are at a soul level and what your soul path or kind of purpose is. I feel like all of us humans always have this little bit of a niggling underneath our skin as to like, what is it? Are we something more? Are we part of this? Are aliens real? Are they not? Who is God? What is this? Why am I here? Well, everybody says I'm supposed to be learning. What am I supposed to be learning right now? You know, so I think everybody on some level has that inner dialogue. And for me, spiritual ascension is about healing and following your spiritual path is probably the simplest way I can put it.
So that's fun that you just said that because once again, it goes hand in hand with what I was talking about in the sense that there's a lot of people out there who talk about it in ways that are not easily understood by people who are just starting out on the journey. And so I've heard people talk about ascending and fifth dimension, and I'm going to tell you, it's so funny because my guides are like, fuck that shit. They don't care about any of that stuff because it's not going to touch people in a beginner level, in a beginning stage. They don't understand. And so why try to cloud up our analytical self? Because how many of us spiritual people, and truthfully, it's really kind of, you know, a catch-22 because I just talked to somebody the other day and told a client, you know, I am the most skeptical medium you will ever meet. And so how many of us actually start out skeptics and analytical people who are just really searching for more knowledge? And so when you search for knowledge and can't really find what it is that you're looking for, that tends to take people that are just starting out down a different turn, and it makes them feel that they're maybe not doing it right, or it makes them have more of a negative spin because they don't understand it. And so my guides tend to, through me, also give like the easiest explanation of stuff. So what you just said resonated so much.
Oh, good. Yeah, because it can be complicated. And when you do kind of get into the whole spiritual realm and more conscious and leave the matrix, as they say, there is a whole language, to spirituality. Yes, it's in English, but words that have different meanings, and it does get really confusing. And it's something that as you simply follow your path, you'll learn along the way. We are constantly learning and growing. And when you are in alignment, just like what you were saying, everybody is on a different path and in a different level. We all are born on different days. Like, we're not meant to do this all, at the same time together. We're meant to be our own solo, sovereign little being who comes down here and incarnates into this whole earth school and gets to learn about life and themselves and their souls. And they all have, I think, a little bit of like divine kind of purpose and implication that when they incarnated, came into this world, they said, okay, I kind of want to work on like learning forgiveness, and I want to work on, helping create, cleaner water for the earth. And I might have these little things that my soul wants to come in and work on. And only I can do that. So it's very individual for each person, and no journey is too big or too small. Every single person has a very important part, on this earth. And so it's just important to know that we all, at the start of this discussion, each and every human came in completely, unconditionally loved from the non-physical, and came in to like experience and teach more unconditional love. So like, know you are loved, know you are enough, know that you are just where you need to be on your path right now, and it's all working out in perfect divine timing.
Yeah, see, I feel like that was kind of an important step in my process, because I tended to live more in the future realm instead of in the now realm when I first started this out. And so the anxiety was real with me. And Spirit has taught me, I guess, in how they've said it to me, is that when you're depressed, you're living in the past, because you can't change what you didn't acknowledge or know how to acknowledge in the moment. And so you tend to be more of a depressed person because of those things that happened. And when you're anxious, you're living more in the future because you're worried about things or fearful that things aren't going to work out the way that you want them to work out. But when we're present in the moment and we understand in the moment, like right now, can we look at our life and say, right now in this moment, it might not be where I want to be, but do I have these things that I need? And then also in there, internalize that and be like, okay, you know what? I'm on a path. I'm changing, which it's funny because before her and I actually got on, we were talking for a couple minutes and I brought up Ben, and I always bring him up. I feel bad for him sometimes, but I'm going to bring him up again because yesterday I told him, I was like, you just need to understand that like you're exactly where you need to be right now. And you might not feel that way, but you're never going to stop learning. It'll never stop. Learning continues until the day that you pass over. And then we learn some more, and then we come back and we learn more. And so to think egotistically that we can have all the power and knowledge is just so stupid for us to humanize, I guess, because that journey is never going to end. And so take it in and breathe it in and love yourself in the moment and be so grateful when the universe bestows to you any drops of knowledge that they can through lessons, through learning, through life, through anything you do. I mean, because it's really such a beautiful gift that we have here, to have that knowledge as it gets put in our lap, and to have those little, crumbs that lead us, I guess, through the woods back into the light. That's an amazing thing. So.
I agree, sister. I agree. There are so many things I thought about when you were saying that, but like, I think it's important for people to know, when we get to this whole, everybody's like, I want to be woke. I want to be conscious. I want to be awake. Like, what does that mean, And that's tuning into what we do consider a higher consciousness. And that's kind of like the overall view of like Earth at this time. Like, if you're to take a step back and be like, okay, in the 1960s, the humans were really working on like segregation and these laws and, getting to the moon and all this stuff. And then you look at the 70s, totally different agenda, so on and so forth. So we want to look at what's going on kind of collectively right now. Like, we have a lot of hot topics. We have a whole sister network that we're birthing that's going to do with politics and all the things that are going on right now, because we are meant to bring light to it and change it and to help heal that. So in order to be part of that whole collective, it is important to be kind of aware of what's going on with yourself. So I kind of want to start there, like what's awake or aware, and that's like when you are aware of your actions and your reactions. Many people, particularly a lot of our clients who are really empathic and really sensitive to this world, their feelings run the show of their life. And depending on how they're feeling or what's happening, or if they're emotionally triggered, then that's the experience they're going to have at that time. So Crystal and I both work with like many empaths who are kind of helping to teach like a little bit of empowerment so that they can control their actions and their reactions. When you can control your actions and your reactions,
I'm so
you
sorry.
tend. What's up? That's
no,
hilarious.
I'm so sorry. I'm laughing because I'm sure you read. Here's the funny thing, because she's talking about how we teach this stuff. But what I love about me, first off, is that I don't claim to be perfect ever, and I get triggered so much because I am so led by emotions. And did you read the post that Jenny put on there about Jesus?
No, not yet.
I was so triggered by that, and it makes me laugh because still to this day, this was like last week, Jenny McDaniel, she is part of the Alchemy Sisters. She is actually
fearless leader.
Yes, she is actually cohorts with Mandee. They do their own show, and she's the one that with Mandee started out this Heart Over Ego, beautiful thing for all of us. And she put out this stupid post on Facebook, and I read one comment about Bernie Sanders being like Jesus and lost my damn mind.
So burn.
Like, holy hell. I was so irritated by that statement. And she asked me what it was. It was so funny because she actually is. She's like, what about this? Does it trigger you? And I'm like, it triggers me because humans have the audacity to put themselves into this divine energy. And, truthfully, there's this TV show. I can't remember what it is. I'll try to Google it as we go through so we'll talk about it, I guess, or I'll just tell you what it is. But it was so funny because in this TV show, it literally is, Jesus is a manifestation. He was a human being. He was a person, just like the rest of us. So why couldn't he be like Bernie Sanders? It literally triggered me for absolutely no reason at all. And I'm like, whoa, girl. I looked back at myself, and if you look back on that thread and you read my comments, Mandee, you are going to laugh.
I'm looking. Is it on her page?
It is. You will literally see the realization that I have. The moment that it clicks and the light bulb goes off, you will see that moment that it takes place, and I'm like, oh, shit. This is me reacting for absolutely no reason because it literally just was the funniest thing in the world. And I still am thinking about this, even though it was last week that it happened, because I'm like, what the hell are you thinking?
You know why?
So, why was that such a thing for you? And you know what? I do understand why. And it's just because I hate politics. I really just despise everything political, and I don't feel like Bernie Sanders is a fair representation of what Jesus would be, because I don't think that Jesus went around screaming, yelling, ranting, and raving about certain things. I understand that Bernie Sanders is passionate about things and blah, 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 but I don't really see him as a loving energy. And I know a lot of people do, but I don't believe in policies the way that most people on this planet, I literally do not see policies the same way. I don't like him. I just don't like him. I don't like his energy. I don't like something about him. And so it's just like that just went. But then at the same time, I'm like, why do you care? It really doesn't matter. At the end of things, it really doesn't matter because Bernie Sanders does not affect my life at all. Neither does Donald Trump. I mean, so at the end of the day, what the hell?
Facebook has been like the perfect playground. Facebook's been the perfect playground for this, for people to be like, okay, wait a minute, why is this triggering me? Why am I upset about this? And you took time to be like, oh, it's because I don't like politics and this and that, or why should I even bother with what that person said? And then this gets back to our ascension path, because the less we can be triggered, the more we're in control of our own reality. Because if we get triggered and like the politics, the stuff on Facebook, that's all like, training day in the playground for what's really happening, and that's the families you chose to incarnate into, what Jenny and I describe as karma, and the family and ancestral patterns that you learn, whether that's the anxiety or anger, not dealing with things in a certain way because this is how your mom did it and you have to do it that way too. And it's often very guilt, shame, fear based a lot of times. And so we get triggered the easiest, I would say, by our family members. What do you think?
Oh, yes. I agree with that 100%. Actually, you know what? I don't necessarily get triggered, and that's because I've done a lot of healing with my family.
Except for Jesus and Bernie Sanders.
Exactly. Yeah, it's so stupid, though. And it's funny because I feel like that right there, and I really seriously cannot tell you at all. I still can't get to why I see things that way. I still cannot explain to you or express to you what it was specifically, what my ingrained thought base is on that. I still can't tell you. I know that I grew up in a church that I didn't like. I went to this church actually to kind of find myself because I had really shitty family growing up. And so I kind of wanted something from them that I wasn't getting as a teenager and my home life. And so they turned their back on me. And they all pretty much, there's like 3 members that I can say were actually wonderful people. Funny enough, one of the people in the church who ended up being a pastor, I got into an actual fight with them, a like screaming match with them in our temple one time. Because in the church, the way that they looked at things was they didn't allow people to, they didn't allow gays. They allowed them into the priesthood. However, they did not allow them to be practicing priesthood members if they chose to have relationships. However, other priesthood members could have wives or husbands. And that just pissed me off because I'm like sitting here thinking, okay, who the hell are you to say that this is different? And that guy that I ended up getting into a feud with ended up coming out later is gay. And I'm like, okay, so there we go. But it's still something that the church for a long time didn't allow. And that really offended me because when I think of, and this is the thing, I don't know where this is coming from, Mandee. I have absolutely no clue.
We're going. Don't worry. I'm with you. I'm on this with you. I got you.
I believe fully that the embodiment of Jesus was to bring forth, I think he was a channeler. I think he was a human being. I believe you embody Jesus. I embody Jesus. Everybody does. So why the hell wouldn't Bernie Sanders? I mean, so that's why I'm like, I literally still can't get to the fact why that frustrated me so much. I still don't understand at an emotional, physical level what triggered that in me. I understand it's almost like pompous, egotistical human thought base. That's, I think, where it comes from. Because people, I feel personally, and this is one of those things that we should probably be having on a different show, but I feel personally that a lot of humans tend to talk about situations in a pompous and egotistical way, in a hypocritical form, instead of looking back at themselves and understanding that, you know, there is no right and there is no wrong. At the end of the day, there's in the middle. And so if we spiritual people are out here saying that you're wrong because of how you believe, then that makes you wrong. Because we can't sit here and say that we see from a place of where that universal energy is and practice that to our clients if we are, and I'm going to tell you, Mandee did not post this, okay? Or not Mandee, sorry, Jenny did not post this. It was somebody else that posted this. And it's like, you know, we can't say that this is who we are if we don't live this in our own lives. You know, you can't say that this is wrong or this is right if we understand that there's only a place of middle, and that's where we should all be trying to get people. We should all be trying to take people from both sides and understand that the only way this is going to work is if we end up working together. Because that ego is what's keeping us from what we want in this earth as a whole, in that peace and that drive and that love. And so that, I think, is what triggered me in that post. I don't think it had anything to do with Jesus. I think it has to do with the actual statement that he was somehow better than anybody else. Because when it comes to political stuff, that's what I dispose of or despise the most. The whole political thing between Hillary being the good one and Trump being the bad one, or Trump being the good one, and I'm like, they're both idiots. I mean, let's just be honest here, okay? they're both horrible people. He's doing this, but she's doing this, you know, and people who don't want to look at actual facts and put the pieces together, then that makes you just as bad as everybody else who's on the other side.
Could we argue perhaps they're just a little less conscious of what's happening?
Yes.
Could we argue that perhaps all of this political movement and the reason we're starting a sister station and all of this is because it's meant to help trigger us into seeing from a different perspective?
Yes, and that is wonderful. And why it triggers me is because I am so not patient with people.
So triggers for me and for our listeners and all my clients know this because I drill it into their heads. But for me, triggers are all opportunities to heal, whether it's physical, spiritual, emotional, whatever it is. So that's what I said. Like, you start with your family, like, you know, and we learn these patterns, like being hypocritical, being manipulative, things like that, narcissistic. Pretty much every empath has narcissistic tendencies because they were raised by a narcissist often. So you had to develop these, you know, things that are kind of what we consider your shadow self. So clearing out your shadows. Clearing out shadows for me are like, I don't want to be as manipulative anymore because that doesn't serve me or my highest good, and that's not a good quality. So that counts as starting to heal and walk along your spiritual path, you know, telling the truth, telling less lies. Like, it's crazy how many people lie through their teeth all day, every day on autopilot. You know, and they have hardly any sense of what's even true in their external world, let alone their inner world. You know, so like that's a tool like I give people to start, you know, along their path of ascension. Like, I like to teach people about receiving and gratitude, and then changing little habits. So like, do you feel like you lie a lot? No. Like, how about tomorrow you just take like an inventory of how many times you did actually lie? Whether it's like, are you having a good day? Yeah, I'm great. And, you know, you're not. You're terrible. You're having a horrible day. Like, there's lie number one. You know, so of course we can have white lies. Of course we can protect ourselves. But it's a really nice way to start gauging where you're at. And then with the trigger thing, and just for me and the whole Jesus, you know, political thing and all that, so one of my first triggers I remember was when I was getting baptized when I was like 4 years old. And I'm like, this again? Like, really? Like, this person's going to baptize me and save me? Like, this isn't what we came here to do, you know? And I'm very much like a Magdalene soul and a Magdalene and part of the Magdalene consciousness. And I believe that both Jesus and Mary Magdalene incarnated to teach us consciousness and alchemy and how to heal ourselves. I believe they practiced sacred sex, which was extra taboo then because it's taboo now. I believe that they were absolutely real people. And then I believe that perhaps the people in charge of the church were not really impressed with the things that they were teaching, so then they changed things in the way it was written for everyone else to learn from. I don't believe women were supposed to be bound the way that they have been for all of these years. And I think that that was something that I still, myself, Mandee, in this lifetime, am here to help bring light to and to help fix and to help create balance. I don't want the feminine to rise above the masculine. I want the feminine and the masculine to rock together and be balanced. And so I feel like that's a part of my soul mission. So, of course, it was going to trigger me in church when I was getting baptized again, and I was listening to things that I didn't believe in at a core and soul level. So who knows? I encourage you to sit with the whole Bernie thing. I mean, I like Bernie. I'm from Vermont. He spoke at my high school. Really nice guy. All kinds of stuff. I don't know. I like him, and I was on the Bern train for a long time. I don't know what I'm going to do yet this election, but I'm sure you guys will all find out about it over on our political network. But yeah. I think that there's something there. And for everyone, anything that triggers you, it's an opportunity to learn more about yourself. And then take the power back. It's like, all right, this triggered me. You know, every time, like when I work with people who are survivors of rape or sexual abuse or really bad things, you're often afraid of the dark. You're afraid to walk out to your car at night. You're afraid someone's going to come attack you. And so like a really nice way to start releasing that trigger is saying things like, I'm safe, I'm protected. I envision angels coming in and protecting me, surrounding me in white and blue light. And then it allows me to start being present and not give fear to the thing, you know, that happened before. Like, say you got raped 5 years ago, then it's affecting your life every day in the present moment for the next 5 years if we don't find a way to give and release that, or forgive and release that experience. It only hurts us. So no matter how horrible the thing you went through and how much work it takes, it does help you so much on a soul level, on a healing level, on your spiritual ascension to learn how to release those things so that they don't trigger you anymore. so that you can enjoy walking out to your car at night and looking at the stars, or a beautiful owl flying by the moon, or looking at fireflies in a field.
See, I agree. And it's so funny because, like, I can agree with every single thing you just said. It's like I just don't want any of that in my – I don't know what it is about any of it, truthfully. I just don't want it in my vibe. I feel like there's such an ugly vibe between it. And I think I told I think I said to somebody on that back and forth, my guides literally have kind of pulled me away from politics. And it's probably because it's not my thing. You know, like we said, your path and your purpose is kind of what you're here for. And so they pulled me really far away from politics completely in 2012, so much so that I will not vote again until I feel compelled morally to vote for somebody that I think has the same moral standings that I want going forward. It's a moral thing for me at this point because
I honor that. I'm totally interrupting you. I'm sorry, because I honor that, and I think that is what, you know, personal ascension is about. It's about a collective morality and what we as people feel is humane and right, you know, and the politics is feeding into, even saying the word politics or political structure is feeding into an energy that we're not wanting to rise. So it makes a lot of sense for me looking at you and your energy being triggered by it, because you want to be more part of the new earth. You know, when people are manifesting, if you focus on war, you attract more war. So going to an anti-war rally is really counterproductive in the energetic field. And if you go to a pro-peace rally, that's much better, because you're saying, I'm pro-peace, I'm here, I'm focusing on peace, as opposed, even if it's anti-war, you're still focusing on war. So I feel like for you, you see the changes that you want, you see the consciousness and the heart energy being risen by the collective, and you're wanting better for them, and you're not wanting to feed into that more negative energy with the political structure it currently is.
That makes more sense. So you just helped me figure out my trigger.
You guys can catch me on the Alchemy Sisters, Heart Over Ego Radio. I help people with this all the time. Be honored to hold space.
I was going to say, I should have called you last week when I was like, what the fuck?
Girl, I'm always here.
So, remember me telling you about the TV show a few minutes ago? It's called American Gods, and it's on Stars. It cracks me up because it's literally exactly what it is. There's this one thing where they go to Ostara, which is the god of Easter, and it has like 150 different Jesuses, which cracks me up.
Ostara? I always thought Ostara was a goddess.
Oh, goddess, yes. Sorry, God, sorry.
But hey, it's a show. It can be whatever it wants to be.
Well, no, she's the goddess. It is the goddess. It's funny because, like, these characters come in. One of the main characters is Odin. So it's like, it's literally what we're seeing right now, which is why I love this, because it's got these old gods fighting with these new gods to gain power back in all these different areas. And so it's trying to get people to believe in something again and trying to get people in this foundation again. But also, it literally shows what Spirit has taught to me, in the sense that what we manifest and what we think is actually our reality. So if you're a firm believer that you're going to go to hell if you do this or you don't repent, then you're going to go to hell, because you're going to have a man-made purgatory that you send yourself to. So it's literally based off from all these different belief structures, and it shows how these different belief structures play such an intricate part in our lives and how we think, feel, and understand. Yes. It is the neatest show ever, and I hope they come out with a third season, because I'm completely in love with it.
I'm an advocate for that, you know, and we're not the first ones. We're, you know, Mandee and Crystal at age whatever in this lifetime. I'm 33. How old are you?
I am 39.
Awesome. I'm going to be 34 I'm going to be 34 in like a week, so I got to start switching that up. But we're not the first people to come in here conscious. We're not the first people to, you know, want to learn more and help people along their spiritual paths. You know, people have been revealing this level of consciousness and downloading things forever and ever and ever. And there are seeds planted throughout our media in so many amazing and beautiful ways to help us to ascend. I reluctantly went to see the movie Interstellar with like an ex-boyfriend years ago when it first came out. And I was like, I don't know. It's not really my but like, whatever. I'll go. Let's go. So we go. And I was like, that was fucking And I went back and saw it twice myself because it helped my mind to expand and look at things I was trying to understand along my own spiritual level. I was studying dimensions at that time. Do we need to know what they are for our awakening? No. But is it fun once you are a little more, in tune to like learn all these different languages and things people are talking about? Of course. I love learning history too, all kinds of things. Her story especially is going to be on the rise. So anyway, these things are hidden throughout our society, through books, through media, through all kinds of amazing things that help us along our path. So like when I recommend books all the time, my number one book to recommend is Louise Hay, You Can Heal Your Life. It was written in 1985, the year I was born. It didn't come into my scope of practice until the past, I don't even know, 3, 4, or 5 years, somewhere in there. And it's been a vital tool and a vital part of my path. So what is meant for you will come at the perfect time for your own perfect path. And there is no need to put pressure on yourself other than the pressure, because it does take some life force to create change. We have to actively choose to do that. So if you want to ascend more, if you want to change more, if you want to heal more, then you have to take action steps towards that.
Yes, practice what you preach.
Mm-hmm.
Live what you want. There's all these different things that we could say. Now, I have a question about ascension because I've also heard, and I told Mandee ahead of time, I know nothing about ascending. I only know about some of the symptoms that we go through, because ascension actually is pretty hard. I mean, would you agree with that? It's kind of hard in the sense that we're healing in some of the triggers and some of the things that are causing, spirit has a way of physically making our body do things that it's that box. Thank you, guides. My guides said, give them the box. So my guides have a way of, when spirit wants us out of our box of life, we're comfortable in the box. That's our safety. That's our house. That's where our pillow is. It's that place in which we go to feel comfortable. And so when life gets comfortable for us, that's kind of our box. And then spirit turns it upside down and they start shaking us out. And then we hang on to the sides as long as we can, because we're fearful of that drop, because we don't know what that drop is going to feel like. And so when my guides talk about the box, that means that we're in our comfort zone. And so when they start giving us physical, emotional things to deal with, then that's essentially them taking us and putting us out of our comfort zone, which a lot of us don't like. And we try so hard to get back to where we were before, but we can't go back because we're not the same as we were when we were in the last box. So essentially, we're hermit crabs. We need to find a bigger box
to
go along with the flow of what we want to be, because life is about growing and changing and learning and really just understanding things in a different way. Because if we stay the same all the time, if I were still the same person today as I was when I was 20, you wouldn't have a conversation with me. So, I mean, it's what we fear the most is what we need the most.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
Often
our greatest gifts are on the other side of our biggest fears.
So what would you say about the physical aspect of ascending? How does that affect us?
Totally. I also wanted to say, before I get to the physical part, that on the topic of fear, our fearless leader, Jenny McDaniel, always talks about alchemizing fear into curiosity. And what that means is, in order to take that step and to face that fear, you are taking a step, you're moving, you're creating, energy that's shifting and changing through you. And that's how you start to alchemize things. So if you can be afraid of something, it's okay. We all have fears. It's all right. But if you can just be curious about it and start learning about it or exploring about it or dipping your toe in, little by little, you break down that barrier and you alchemize that fear. And it's really nice. And that's a big part of our spiritual ascension path.
Yeah.
So you were asking about the physical symptoms, sometimes the universe throws you on your ass, that kind of thing.
Yes, that and the physical aspects of, and I'll bring something up a little bit later, because I kind of am curious if you think that, because once again, this goes with what I've seen people post or what I've seen people say or other teachers. They talk about how essentially our DNA is changing, and that's the ascension. It's the DNA shift, the DNA change that is occurring within us, which is causing us to be that fifth dimensional human being or whatever. And so I'm curious about what you think when it comes to all of that, because I don't know. Like I said, after you're done talking about what you do, I'll tell you how my guides have given me 2 specific areas in life that are hot topics, actually. So
Perfect. Well, yeah. So as far as all this goes, I do believe very much as we heal our traumas and our dramas and our physical ailments, our body and our DNA does. It changes all the time. Not only that, but when we get to a certain level of consciousness and peace and like accepting and receiving, we're able to often remember things within our DNA too. So like I feel like many of us have an ancient remembering of things via our blood and whatnot. And then as we download more ideas, as we create a different state of being within our bodies do change and shift a little, and we add more information and we release old toxic things that are no longer serving us. And that will come up as feelings. Sometimes you got to cry it out. You got to go for a run. You got to punch a punching bag. You got to do things sometimes to release some stuff that comes up because you're being healed. I always use an example with my clients. You know, they're like, oh, I was just crying all day yesterday and I don't know why. I'm like, maybe it was just your inner child. Maybe you were like 5 years old and some big mean girl pushed you down the slide and like called you a name and it ruined your day that whole day. And maybe you found a little piece of your worth or your healing within yourself. So now you're ready to release that memory and that trauma that gets stored in your muscle bellies at a very deep cellular level. So sometimes it'll come out and we have to deal with these things. Does that make sense?
Yes, it definitely does make sense.
So sometimes these things come up. Then as we heal, as we change our consciousness, our bodies, they take a little time to catch up. You often hear of people with ascension symptoms at certain times when there's certain moons or retrogrades or eclipses happening. They might get really bad headaches or chest pain or feel just kind of achy or fluey. And a lot of times it's because there is a DNA structural thing happening. And it has to do a lot of the time with what we've released, kind of what I went back to, what I think is our biggest catalyst for spiritual growth and ascension. And it's like the things that we've inherited or learned from our families. And so, for instance, for me, my big physical thing, I had a lot of physical injuries growing up. Like the universe, I felt like was always trying to get my attention in certain ways. And I had what we would call in the spiritual community a dark night of the soul probably about 5 years ago or so. And one of my biggest things that was happening during then, I had a broken back, 2 broken ankles, all kinds of stuff. But one of my biggest things was I was having reoccurring gout attacks. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, I've got gout. I'm pretty sure I have it. Like, both my grandfathers had it. I'm overweight. Like, it's definitely possible. I eat foods that can contribute to it. And I kept going to the doctors, and they kept telling me, no, you're a female. You're too young for it. You don't have gout. And so I kept getting misdiagnosed. And then I finally got diagnosed with it after I had an ankle surgery, and they found all these gout crystals. And I'm like, I fucking knew it. Like, I knew it this whole time. Like, I knew it. And so I was like, okay, now I know what the problem is so I can treat it. And so when I read the affirmation for what emotionally causes gout in Louise Hay You Can Heal Your Life, I was like, oh, that couldn't be me. It was like impatience and need to dominate. And I'm like, am I impatient and do I need to dominate? Like, no, not me. Like, I'm pretty chill. I'm really nice. I'm really polite to people. Like, no, I don't get it. And then I was like, oh, yeah, that's me. Like, I'm super impatient with myself. I'm really mean to myself all the time. I used to call myself, like, a fat, ugly bitch over and over and over on repeat, like, every day. I was really impatient with my spiritual awakening. Like, spirit guides, why won't you connect with me? Angels, why won't you connect with me? Like, I really wanted more, and I was being really hard on myself. So I kept getting these gout attacks. When I started saying the affirmations to fix it, and I started being nice to myself and telling myself how much I love myself and how awesome I am, and how in a moment where I like would screw up, I'd forgive myself and be like, it's okay, and you know, hug myself and my inner child like I was like my own little daughter. And
Aww.
I had like one mini gout attack after that, and this has been like years now because I started doing some like crazy exercises and like rocked up a couple crystals, and it was like it didn't take long at all and it healed right up. It was nothing like what I was experiencing over and over and over again because I corrected the thought pattern that caused that disease or that injury within my body.
That is so awesome. And it's funny because a lot of people don't understand when spirit comes through and talks about different things with people, they talk a lot actually about our chakra system. And they have people, like I usually write things down for my clients, and a lot of times they have me write down the different chakras. They literally have me draw a human body, and then I write down where the chakras are located, what they are, and then underneath that I say, make sure you study the chakra system, but also look at the physical and emotional effects of balanced and imbalanced. Because I don't think people understand. First off, I didn't even know what a chakra system was until I started this journey. They don't teach it, and I don't understand why it's not taught differently, I guess, than what it is. It's almost like a secret, I feel like. And I'm not exactly sure why, because once you understand, and it makes complete sense, it's an energy system. It makes so much sense that there would be a physical, a mental, emotional part of each energy system. It makes so much sense. So anybody who's experiencing anything at all, like she just talked about, please make sure that if you don't know what the chakra system is, you go in and you look at each individual one. And, with me, I experience shoulder pain a lot, which is an injury. I had an injury as well, and I still have a lot, but I still kind of go back and forth. I really feel like some of it is still emotional baggage, but also I feel like some of it is just an injury and arthritis, because that's in there too. But, understanding that and learning how to work through that is something that will also get you out of that box and move you to that bigger box, because then you're not stuck in bed all the time like, poor me, why does my life have to be like this? I'm in so much pain, blah, 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 blah. That's a vicious circle of chaos that you're creating for yourself, and that's when you're fearful of change. When a doctor, I remember Ben, once again, bringing him up, poor guy. I remember when I first met him, he was like, I can't do anything. I'm in so much pain. They had him on so many narcotics. He literally should have died. But at the same time, he was like, I can't exercise. And his pain doctor kept telling him to do yoga. And so I was like, do yoga. And he's like, I can't because it hurts. And when you're hurting, you don't want to do this. And I'm like, I understand, but that's probably when you need to do it the most.
Mm-hmm.
And so funny enough, Ben is no longer bedridden, which he pretty much was sleeping maybe 20 hours a day. I'm not even over exaggerating that. He literally was in bed almost every moment of his day, constantly hopped up on narcotics, but still in intense pain. How is that physically possible? You can't be on methadone and Norco and all these other nerve killers and still feel as much pain as you're feeling. And so now it's funny because it's like almost, it's not completely reversed, but at least now he's working, he's off disability, he's doing so much more for his life. And it's kind of funny because it's like, yeah, I remember like 3 years ago, you told me you were dying. So look what Spirit's done for you. And it's just so funny when you see people start taking those moves and you start seeing people believe in themselves and stand in their power, to start to see the changes that they really know that they can make. Because I feel like sometimes it's their power's almost been stripped from them in a way, from other people, and they just don't know how to gain that power back because nobody's shown them how.
No, and you've mentioned this a couple times that in this last little bit you were chatting about, part of our sister network emerging here, a political thing, we're not taught this for a reason. And we're not taught to love ourselves and to heal ourselves and to feel like we're enough and appreciated for a reason, because it keeps us dimmed down. It keeps us in a state of dis-ease, and it keeps us not being completely free in a lot of ways. So we'll talk more about that later, but it's a huge thing. None of us were taught to love ourselves, and, very few, sure, I'm sure there was a few people who were, but for the most part, religions and schools and societies and even our own selves and our own parents, I keep looking at that meme going around Facebook that being like, when babies walk, all their parents do is like cheer and cheer them on and like, come on, you can do it. And then as they get older, that starts to disappear and it switches to children needing to like impress their parent in some way, or they have to do something super remarkable for their parent to acknowledge them and love them unconditionally or in a certain way. And it's fascinating. So as we grow and we hear all these messages and we see it in the media and in movies and on posters and in our, religions and schools that we're not good enough and we're not doing good enough, like we have an entire grade system where, you have to be super, super stellar to get your, we have built our entire society on that. So no one was taught that. So number one, if you feel like, why can't I do this? It's because everything in this world is stacked against you right now to do this. And this is when we enter the spiritual game and we're like, all right, I can see you. I can deflect this. I'm not going to feel this way about that when I look at this model or whatever it is. Crystal, I do have a question for you.
Yes.
When your shoulders act up, is it always or sometimes or worse than others? Like what kind of pain you getting and how often?
Actually, it's my right shoulder mostly,
Okay.
and it's most of the time. Like
Okay.
it really bugs me during weather shifts and changes, which is why I'm like I want out of Michigan so bad, because when it gets colder, it really hurts. And I do know that there's arthritis, and I also have a rotator cuff tear that they are not doing anything about right now, which is fine because I've already had a shoulder surgery that was really bad, and so it's a lot. But it gets really bad. Knots. And when I'm saying knots, you can literally physically see these knots on the outside of my shoulder, back, down my spine. There's a lot of stuff actually going on, and it has not, I feel like I'm you right now when it comes just different. When it came to your gout, I know something's wrong that has not yet been addressed, but nobody's listening to me because they can't figure out, they just aren't listening to me. So
yeah, I think you have, if I may I
yeah,
give you
go
a little
right ahead.
interpretation? There's like a few things I see. Number one, I see some past life trauma, like you definitely got your arm cut off or like maybe died like hanging by your arm, like you have some past life trauma that's compounded there, and probably Jenny or one of our other amazing talented women here on Heart Over Ego could help you to visit that and maybe remove some of that and that attachment. So that'll help clear it up psychically, spiritually, and energetically. Next, Louise Hay always says anything to do with our shoulders, particularly the shoulder joint and the round of your shoulder, represents your ability to carry out experiences joyously in life. We make life a burden by our attitude.
Ooh.
And so the affirmation to correct that is, I choose to allow my experiences to be joyous and loving.
It's funny because I have that book because of you.
Yeah.
And I do that.
Perfect.
I am doing those affirmations. As a matter of fact, I give that book. I've added that book to my list of books.
Yeah.
Because I think it's an amazing book. It is
so good.
It's such an amazing book. So yes, I'm just now working on all of that because I agree with that 100%. I do. I've always had that negativity vibe behind like, okay, I'm not where I want myself to be. And like I said, it's really a lack of patience, a patience in myself, a love in myself, really believing that the universe has got my back.
And
also,
that's it. You are showing our listeners right now and our clients, like, this is the work. It's these conversations that we have in our head that say, hey, this needs attention and this is how and what I'm going to do to change it. So Crystal's like, I'm going to buy this book. It changed Mandee's life. Like, hopefully it'll change my life. And she's like, oh, yeah, nope, this shit's great. I'm going to send it to my clients too. And I'm going to do it. So now Crystal's just starting this work. She can report back on us and be like, you know what? Like, yeah, I had to have a couple things go on with my shoulders, or eventually like I needed some arthritis. Also, I've been curing my arthritis is being critical of yourself. So anytime you're critical of yourself, arthritis flares up often.
Very much me.
Yeah, it was for me too, and I cleared it out. We just had a nor'easter this past weekend, and I was like really loving to myself, and like, I got a couple aches and pains, but nothing like I would usually experience with that kind of storm and energy coming in. So like these affirmations do work, and if you say them to yourself each day, and you don't believe it at first, like probably when Crystal was like being all salty and whatnot, she was like, I choose to allow my experiences to be joyous and loving.
I really do.
Like, and then eventually, one day it's just like, oh, you feel more at peace, and you're like, I choose to allow my experiences. Okay. And it's like, aha, I get it.
There is such a reason why I'm so honest with my clients, because it's like, sometimes they see things from a perspective of what we want people to see. It's easy for them to see me in this space when I'm channeling and I'm pure love because they're seeing spirit. What they don't understand is that's not me. I'm a human too, and I have my own mess to deal with. And when your loved ones channel through me, it is the most beautiful experience, not only for you, but also for me, because in the healing they give to you, they're also gifting it to me. And so it's such a beautiful gift to be able to say that God has allowed me, or the universe has allowed me to have this amazing gift to connect you with these people that you've lost and loved, and even your guides. But at the same time, it's like, y'all are seeing a very different version of who this girl is. I've had some stuff happen to me in my life, and I'm still pretty salty about it, and I will be honest with you. So, because honesty to me is what helps us grow. If I'm going to lie to my clients and not be honest with them, then I'm lying to myself about what work needs to be done.
Yeah.
So.
Yep, that's it. Triggers are opportunities to heal, and that's where the consciousness comes in. That's when you know you're starting to be on your path. You're like, okay, I have really severe anxiety. I can, every time this happens, just be like, I have terrible anxiety, and this is terrible. Or I can say, wait, I'm aware I have anxiety now. What are some things I can do? I can go over gratitudes. I can ask my angels to protect me. I can do some tapping. I can do some affirmations. I can do things to help ease this pain. Is it going to take this pain or this experience away? Nope. But is it an active thing that I can do to help ease it and make it better? It sure can. For all the ladies out there who get migraines, I always throw this out to anybody because it could help. And migraines are the worst. But Louise Hay says that you can often alleviate or cure a migraine when it's first coming on by giving yourself an orgasm.
And like, who doesn't want that? So I'm just going to say.
Who doesn't want that? Like, who doesn't want that knowledge? I do.
I'm going upstairs. I have a migraine.
I've got a migraine. Be back. Gonna go lay down for a bit.
I said that I was going to bring up a couple things because it kind of goes hand in hand with what we're talking about. Maybe not so much, but it kind of does. It does when it comes to autoimmune diseases. So when it comes to our bodies, and that's why I said these are hot topics, because actually it has to do with birth control and immunizations. And so Spirit has kind of gifted me the knowledge that neither one of them are bad. I'm not on the train of like bad versus good. I'm not. Actually, I feel like our bodies are evolving. And if you look back in time, we have evolved, correct? Like we have to in order to stay alive because climate changes and all this other stuff that are taking place. Mm-hmm. But so if you think about it, birth control became a big thing in late 50s, early 60s. So grandmothers were on birth control. Mothers were on birth control. We're on birth control. Why do you think so many women are unable to get pregnant? Mm-hmm. Because our bodies are evolving based on what we're putting in them.
You're consuming and teaching them to do.
And teaching them to do.
Yep.
And immunizations, which is funny enough because people ask me about the autoimmune diseases that I was diagnosed with, and they're like, oh, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, don't be, because I really don't see it as a bad thing. I see it as my body evolving into what it needs to be immune to things in the future, because we've given ourselves immunizations for centuries now, for years and years. And so we're teaching our bodies to be immune to certain things. And if you know anything about autoimmune diseases, it is our body literally kind of fighting ourselves to keep ourselves healthy in a really bad way. So it's almost like it hasn't quite caught up with the internal system that we have. And so I feel like with science and all those other things, it'll kind of slow itself down, and eventually we will be immune to certain things just naturally. Mm-hmm. And I really think that that's kind of, what an autoimmune disease is. It's part of our DNA structure and the evolving that's taking place. And so I thought that was kind of interesting to go along with this topic of conversation, because you have all these topics, especially around birth control, and women are so distraught because they can't conceive. And there's so many women out there that can't conceive, but nobody's thinking about this.
Yeah, no, I think about it. I'm right there with you. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Most women who go off birth control, it takes them like a year and a half at least usually to get pregnant. Like, people think they're just going to, I'm going to not take the pill this month and here we go. Like, no.
I was put on birth control because I had endometriosis and all these other issues with everything. So they tried to put me on, and I couldn't be on birth control. It made me like the Incredible Hulk. And I feel like
too. I'm a psycho.
I am a psycho when I was on birth control. And I think that it was Spirit's way of saying no. Like, no, don't put that into your system. And I'm so grateful that they did that. But at the same time, it's kind of like, why are people not putting two and two together? That this is going to cause irreversible, consequences. I guess I'm not going to say damage. I'm going to say consequences, because we are literally training the female body to not conceive.
Yeah.
And when you take birth control, it's in your system. And so your daughter also, as she's in the womb, is being formed with natural birth control and the hormones. And so we have to start looking at these things a little bit differently. I mean, why I understand some people can't use condoms. Do the pull-out method. I don't care, but keep your body safe and don't put so many man-made chemicals in there. Do whatever you need to do. If you want birth control, then by all means do it, but there's also different forms of controlling whether or not you get pregnant. So
I love that. And I think
to put that out there.
I love that all, and I think that makes total sense. And I think, like, my gout, my big physical thing that made me shift my perception. Also, I come from a family of alcoholics, and then that comes with all of the, qualities that come along with an alcoholic, personally and whatnot. And I think part of it was me and my higher self. That's the other thing. I think a big part of our souls and spirit is our higher selves. And I think that we put in a bit of a block, being like, not this lifetime. Like, you're not becoming an alcoholic like everyone else. So here's this physical block. Here's this thing. Like, whenever I drink now, like, I rarely drink. I'll have a cocktail or two every now and then, but, like, I can't. I, like, throw up for, like, 12 hours the next day, get crazy hangovers. Like, I played rugby through college. Like, I used to drink. So it was crazy. And then one day it just all changed. But I feel like that's part of my ascension path, and that's part of my personal path in order to grow. And I think I wasn't meant in this lifetime to spend any time in that alcoholic space.
I know a lot of spiritual people who also have that newfound almost, it's almost like an allergy to alcohol. Pat Longo, actually, her guides won't allow her to drink. She gets severely ill. And I used to drink all the time. I used to do Jaeger shots. And
going back to 19 for me.
I used to go back, like when I used to go out with my friends, that's what I'd do. I'd take a couple Jaeger shots and I'd be good for the rest of the night. But if I take a Jaeger shot today, I will vomit like horribly. And the next day, even if it's just one shot, I will be so sick for like a day or two afterwards. And it just takes the whole life out of me. And so I think these are just things that my guys are like, no, not today, Crystal. This is not going to happen. Also, I really believe that my whole family has addictive personalities because I think both sides of my family has addiction. So, I mean, that's probably what it is. I don't know. I just know that my guides will not allow me to do narcotics. My guides will not allow me to drink. I'm even very, very sensitive to pot. So I have to be really, careful with how much I consume when it comes to smoking marijuana as well, because it will just, I can't do edibles because edibles would kill me. So it's just, I think that as we go on our spiritual journey, we do become more sensitive. And I think that that's part of the gifts that we have.
And that's part of the ascension process too. Alcohol is called a spirit for a reason because it does. It takes your presence and your consciousness and, it alleviates things. And we've done that for centuries and centuries and centuries. So I think it is falling away for a lot of people. I have a ton of female clients, especially, like I see it rising in females more, that are just like becoming sober just because they're like, it's not serving me anymore, or, oh, it's making me sick. And like, I don't know, I want to see what that's like, because it became such a crutch for our society, and our parents and grandparents and everyone, that it's like, let's see what would happen if we didn't. Let's see what would happen if we all eat some more like healthy food without chemicals. Let's see what happens if we drop the preservatives and the sugar. Like, we're onto something here. And so it changes our bodies. That's why people with gluten sensitivities, when they completely stop eating gluten and then they have something with gluten, they have a severe reaction because they changed their bodies to do that.
That happened to me just last week. I made homemade bread, and it was like I wanted a piece of it so bad. So I was like, I'm going to eat this anyway. And I was so sick. I was so sick. I was like, okay, no more. I swear I won't do gluten anymore. Stupid celiac disease.
Yeah.
Completely makes sense. Well, I hope that helped people. And also listeners, if you are tuning in and you want to know more about the ascension, please get on and look up the physical, I think, symptoms of the ascension, because you can look up certain things. And I'm sure Mandee could name off a few, but dizziness, forgetfulness, body aches, all that other stuff that goes hand in hand, those are all. So when I'm feeling a little bit shitty, I actually will say, I feel shitty today. However, I'm excited because that means I'm ascending. And so I try to put a positive spin on everything it is that I feel, because I really do fully believe that it is the universe taking us to where we need to be. I don't think that it's happening because I'm some poor sap that needs whatever. I really
Not
fully
punishment.
believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's growing pains. That's what I tell my inner Mandee. It's just a growing pain.
So, Mandee, you've already said it once, but it was kind of fast. Where can people find you? And seriously, y'all, if you got some Ascension stuff, go to Mandee.
I would be
or
honored. Yeah, and Jen, we are honored to hold full space with you. You can find us, myself and Jenny McDaniel, on Facebook.com/The Alchemy Sisters. You can also find us on our website, which is alchemyascensionacademy.com. And yeah, send us a message, shoot us an email. We would be honored to connect with you, and we provide many, many services.
Side note, I would love to have Jenny on here sometime because I feel like we talk about her an awful lot.
Yeah.
I would love for people, I know the listeners know who she is. They probably listen, but at the same time, I would love her to hold space with us together.
Crystal, how do we get you? Yes.
I was going to say, you can find me at Mid Mitten Medium on Facebook, Instagram, anywhere. My website is midmittenmedium.com, so that's pretty much where you can find me everywhere. Thank you so much, Mandee. It was an incredible show. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a beautiful night.
You too. Bye.